Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's another Sunday afternoon, and then we've discussed a few topics earlier on, but I thought we will bring up another topic that is of interest for us as Sri Lankans. So today I'm actually going to focus on a subject that is why our education paradigm is outdated for our development as a country. But before that, I feel really empathic on a subject that is actually developing. Just spend a couple of minutes on this. We've discussed about democracy, say, last month at some point, and what autocracy is. And unfortunately, there is a major world crisis on the making at the moment. And just spend a couple of minutes on that so that we are aware. This is a country called Ukraine, and that's in the border of Russia. And this country has 44 million people. And Russia has 144 million people. And Belarus, that's at the top end there, has got 9 million people. So all the countries, these three countries altogether, were part of Russian Federation before 1991. And after 1991, the Ukraine became a democratic government, and the other countries that were in federation, like Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, they all became democratic governments. And Crimea, that was at the bottom and here, also was attached to Ukraine. But Belarus and Russia became more autocratic governments. And then there was a separatist area that's after 2014, there was a separatist area. And this was very similar to our situation, which we had in year 2000s. With, say, north, we had a LTT kind of area. And this is kind of a separatist area that was supported by the Russian government. So we had this situation which was very similar to ours, say 15 years ago. And then this Russian government attacked Crimea and then confiscated that. So it became an autocratic governance again. But the separatists also supporting, and then a war has now broken out. And sadly, it's a huge human catastrophe in the developing, and then you could see that. And this gives a world to think again, and there'll be effects will be worldwide. So why is the question which we can talk about in the future? It is also important. Maybe people think about why such a thing is happening. We were lucky that India was a democratic country, and generally, two democratic countries don't fight between each other. So now let's come to our focus. Why our education paradigm is outdated for our development as a country. And I'm actually putting things together based on my experience as a staff member at University of Peradeniya in Sri Lanka for 14 years, and at King's College London for 10 years now, and also University College London as a PhD student for 4 years. In addition to that, I have actually been a medic. Now have worked for 41 years with people every day at every class. So I have reflected and also taken into account what I've learned by so much association with people. So currently, Sri Lanka is facing a huge economic crisis. And this is considered to be because of huge debt. But anyway, let's take a look at it differently. And basically, the public money we have is not enough. And at the moment, sadly, to repay the loans, almost 100% of our GDP, that means our earnings will go to repay the loans. So there isn't much left or nothing left to maintain public services or development. So sadly, inevitably, what has been done is to increase the public money, tax the people directly or indirectly. And for example, indirect taxing, for example, comes like this. As far as I know, 3 months ago, when I looked at the data, 1/3 of the currency stock has been printed. So this kind of thing reduces the value of the money. So your salary, although by number is the same, reduces in value. And as a result, you can see there were so many strikes coming up in the country because people just can't live from what they're earning. So that is kind of taxing indirectly from people. So anyway, that's not our subject today. To see how to come out of this problem is our subject. So in spending public money, we've recognized two things. One is we have to reduce wastage. And there was a good article, for example, very simple one, a month ago so, someone was telling that Sri Lanka should close down most of overseas missions as a step towards reducing public expenditure. Now, this is something that can be done in a very short notice, for example. Then our focus is increased productivity. Increased productivity, you can do a lot of things. We've outlined some areas, but as a key, education and education and education is what we need to do. And this is something that was identified by the World Bank as well. This was 2019. It said Sri Lanka needs to invest in people to unlock its productive potential. So let's take it from there and look at our current education model. We focus a little bit about preschool education, but there's no standard on that. Different people do different things. But our most focus has become on the primary education. Then after that, it started to die down secondary education, university education, and postgraduate. It just died down in the focus. There's a big area that is missing. What is missing? Children who are dropping out from the formal education process, we don't have a backup. Say, for example, like, say, in Malaysia, I mean, they have degrees for carpenters as well. So you can do a skillful job, learn a skillful thing, going through something not that formal, like in our country. Then adults, the young, middle-aged, and old people, there are no education opportunities as such. And also, even if you educate ourselves, can't get into anything. So, and also our focus of education has slowly deviated to jobs, that is economy, rather than the society. So we need to have opportunities for all ages, to have training that is relevant training so that people can become productive. Take this example. Take the primary school, that's grade 5 scholarships. Political interest for these, very high. I mean, even people might give donations, prizes, etc., to the students who pass the scholarship. But become a university student. You will understand a few things. You are now beginning to think about what you are doing and all that. So they will always have arguments. So these arguments, very little political interest for these arguments coming from the university. And they are treated like this. So that's kind of in Sri Lanka where our focus has deviated. So, and also we have a method of categorization of children for life, basically, by an advanced level examination. Advanced level examination is basically a memory recall test. And also there is a district basis included in it. So what happens? So why I call a memory is that in medicine, for example, there's something called a Miller's pyramid, where you have the knowledge or education, try to achieve 4 levels. Say recall. So first you get to know about something, then you interpret and apply your knowledge, say knows how to apply it. Then you demonstrate it, you show how to do it. And then you do it on your own in practice without supervision. So you does it. So you knows how, shows, does. So really speaking, your competence is shown here when you does that. But it's the advanced level examination is somewhere here. It's basically memory recall, very little interpretation included in it. So it's somewhere around here. So basically you do an exam at this level and you kind of categorize children, say, oh, you can't do this subject or you can't do that subject. I can show you examples into that. And then you look at the Sri Lanka university admissions, for example. This is data from the University Grants Commission, which I've converted to create this graph. So you see the percentage eligible for university admission. That means these are the students from A level who passed the advanced level. Out of them, we actually admit only less than 10%. Say from 1990, say 2017, 18, you admitted only 10% of the people, children who are qualifying for admission. So this is a really sad situation. So 90% of our students basically get abandoned at advanced level. So after that, if they want to learn anything, they have to either self-fund it or find further opportunities or just do something. So basically based on their parents and people who can support, their education may just end up there. So let's look at the outcome of this education. So we have this free education, and there's our elite students, basically selected by the Z score, which combines the merit as well as the district basis. So these 10% lucky Sri Lankan students qualifying were actually supported by the 90% who did not get any support after advanced level. So they should really realize that funding for them mostly came from the students and their parents who actually did not get a chance to have higher education. But see the outcome. Some of these students who pass the university education at the end of the day, say they go protesting, asking for jobs. So there is a problem issue with the quality of education in some of the programs at least. So basically, what is the outcome? The 10% of our elite students supported free to be educated by others who should really be leading us and are. So these are the people who should really lead us to the future, are asking for the remaining 90% students' incomes for whatever they produce and to fund them for life using public money. So this is what they're asking. So it's really sad scenario. Now, based on this is a survey, Global University Employability Survey done in 2016. Based on your own experience, which of these foreign countries produce the most employable graduates, so that what we train, what we teach actually becomes modified to match the demand. So if you look at it, look at the countries, the most employable graduates are produced by US, Germany, UK, Canada, China, France. So you can see why they're also the most earning countries, because they change their education to the need. So these graduates become employable and productive. So see our national universities. The current system was based on the Universities Act number 16 of 1978. That's how the UGCs come about. So the curriculum modification is hierarchy dependent. The universities are not autonomous. You take years to develop a curriculum. A new thinking comes from, for example, a new senior lecturer who's joined, and he wants to change the curriculum and he make a proposal. Now this will go through various, the university who's been working in universities in Sri Lanka, that it will go through your faculty board, then several other committees, then Senate, and then after that, the council, which will take 2 years minimum to get through it. And once that's gone through that, it will go to UGC, and then it will be handled by the UGC committee. And they're quite senior people who are there. They may not even understand what's being proposed because they never learned that subject area. So then there's criticism and it comes back and forward. So by the time you get curriculum approved, it will take about 4 years. So for example, if you produce a course that's to say repair iPhone 13, which is currently there, by the time we produce those graduates who can repair iPhone 13 is already out of date. You'll be having iPhone 16 by that time. So here is the problem of hierarchy-dependent curriculum. Then the quality assurance of courses has to be independent so that somebody will say the course is not up to the quality independently, but the UGC's quality assurance is not independent. It's under the hierarchy of the UGC itself. And the universities are basically passive. The national universities are basically passive. The teachers come to work and go. There is no competition between them. Virtually, also, there's no feedback assessment by quality of education. You don't want to know whether your students have got their jobs within 3 months or 6 months, how much research output is there, how much, what they have said. You don't even get their feedback to say what could have done better so that the universities can change accordingly. Funding is not based on performance or the student numbers, but a quota. This is another problem. So the national funding that comes, you just give it to them because your course has anticipated 50 students, for example, for a particular course in a university. But because it's the grades and everything is not that good, some students don't apply. So a course that has a quota of 50 students, you'll get 5 students entering. So those things are not described anywhere, but the quota money will go to them. And virtually no foreign students. I mean, there may be 1 or 2.1, no, I can't remember what's allowed, like less than 1% anyway. So no foreign students. So staffing is stagnant, say, and non-competitive. Say you stay there as a probationer for 3 years, then you get confirmed. After that, you can just stay there and just survive in their ranks, like you become a senior lecturer and you can stay there for life as a senior lecturer. So you don't get asked and you don't say why you're not doing. Say, for example, I know myself that people complain that a certain staff member was giving the same note for 15 years in the university. And this is kind of thing that happens. But in the UK, for example, it cannot happen. I know 2 or 3 professors who were stripped of their ranks because they had no patents, no income generating activities for several years. So it's not a permanent rank that you will have. And innovation and research is most important, but we are not promoting it anywhere, because if you are giving people some credit for their research, then for their promotions, for jobs and etc., then at least people will try to get interested, but this is not the norm. And the space, some of the universities, say I was at Peradeniya, and out of the money you get, quite a lot go for maintenance of the garden, etc., etc. But we don't make use of that space. For example, in the UK, in London, for example, there are holiday hostels, etc., will become holiday homes or hostels for outsiders and earn some money during campus holidays. But this kind of facility is not created in our universities at all. So at least the income that you can generate is not even considered in our universities. And no provision for incentive for extra money generation. I remember when I was at Peradeniya, I went and asked from the university because I was going to produce a proposal to patent. And I said, look, if I patent this and if I get some income, how much will I get? So the answer said, no. All the income has to come to university. The best we can do is we can increase your salary, basic salary, by 25%. Now we applied the same scenario, and we had a visit to Malaysia to a university. And I asked, how are your innovators helped? So they say, if you have an innovation, the university takes it up and they will do all the expenses necessary for patenting, and then they find entrepreneurships. If it's a commercial product, at the end of the day, out of all the profit that you get out of this project, so out of all the profit, 70% will be given to the innovator. So you promote innovation. So because of that reason, the entrepreneurial links between our universities and commercial companies, etc., is virtually non-existent. So this is an out-of-date paradigm, and it doesn't support development. And the other thing is, if you want to take any change, people who are worked in our environments, you know, change is blocked by a vociferous few. Always, if you go for a meeting, there are one or two people shouting for everything, and they have their own way. The others keep silent. So it's usually because of selfish agenda. I mean, you try and say, with the table that was in a room that is north to south, you want to change it to east to west, there'll be people shouting against that as well. So you don't ask why even. And busloads of people come to Colombo. Most participants don't even know why they are protesting. So they start shouting. And out of all the damage you have because of these, like loss of working hours and property damage or whatever, who pays for this damage and destruction? It is us, who are mainly the working class, without any fuss. And basically, these fights on the streets, etc., or whatever, is a poor versus poor. That's what is happening. Sadly, say, for example, this example. This was a CITEM medical college that was proposed and tries to be established by a single person who's had it a lifetime ambition to do it. This was killed without helping it to enhance its quality assurance issues. There were quality assurance issues in relation to selection of students, etc. Without helping it to enhance that, you just killed it. So what's happened? Our talented children now go abroad in large numbers seeking education. Where they go, they want to find cheaper places. So they go to Belarus, Manipur, Ukraine, China, Russia, UK, USA, France, Netherlands, and etc. I know last year, the number who went from Sri Lanka to do medicine in Belarus is over 100 students. So the average cost is between 5,000 to 50,000 USD dollars per year per student. And this comes from our dollar reserve. Sadly, our parents try so hard, they sell their property, land, etc., to support their children to learn. Imagine the reverse. If we had allowed this kind of university to exist, at least for the foreign students, never mind the local students, we can attract all that money if we offer education to foreign students here in Sri Lanka. So who are the losers? We are the losers, the working class. We don't even know. This is another example when we try to establish allied health science degree courses for the first time in the country. GMOA, now GMOA I mentioned here because GMOA, 99% of the people who are talking and protesting are the ones who had free education. They protested against this AHS establishment in 2005. And they did all the other things other than arguing with academic reasons. Teachers were threatened. University access was prevented for all the students who were selected through UGC. Administrations were stressed by strikes and everything. Virtually, the university courses got delayed by 1 year. Politicians influenced to stop support. Then they prevented hospital access for all these students, which was eventually granted by Supreme Court, and then false allegations to downgrade the study. So all this kind of thing happened just to stop another degree program. But luckily they survived, and this faculty is one of the best now going on in University Peradeniya. So here what we can do, but we had to make such a big effort to do something good for the country in that time. So here, this one actually survived, but against the CITEM, it was killed. Now look at the university admissions again. So 90% of our students are abandoned at advanced level. But this number, this 10%, has to reach at least 50%. The reason is this. Why? Because 30 to 40% of the workforce are graduates in developed countries. So the free education model will never achieve it. No sufficient public funding. It does not happen even in developed countries. Even in developed countries, it's not, education is not totally free. The students have to fund some of the course fees. I think the universities get funded by about 40%. The rest, the funding has to be given by the students. But the students get loans, which they can pay after qualification. So this 10%, we can't, there's not even a trend of increase. So we really need to look at that. So we cannot afford to be silent. We cannot afford to fund 60% children passing advanced level examination for free higher education. Current higher education paradigm is not producing graduates in demand. That is why there are unemployed graduates in our country. So with the education paradigm, means the education courses, we have a problem. And then there are a few who are blocking any opportunities created for others. Now, look at these enrollment ratios in higher education in different areas, Europe and Central Asia. So out of the students, 50% will get enrolled for higher education. Ours is like Saharan Africa, just 10%. So you can see why we are remaining poor and we have no opportunity to develop, because we have not focused and revised the needs of our education. And take the international students. The best universities in the world, if you take any of the best ones, they have 20 to 25% foreign students within the university. Look at this: Luxembourg, Singapore, UK, Hong Kong, Australia, Switzerland, New Zealand. So all these universities, 25 to 30% are foreign students, and they bring money. So we must allow at least 30% foreign students in our national universities, at least if we want to increase the income, because the international students will pay the course fees, and that course fee is used to support the local students. That's what's happened in the foreign country. So this is the first page BMJ from just last week, not very months ago. It says why the new medical schools in the UK are targeting international students. Why? Because each student bring £40,000 per year as course fees, plus they will need another 20,000 for their living. So for the country, they bring about £60,000 per student. What is that for? It will support the local students' education. So that's the reason. So look at the number of international students in the UK. It's gone up from 2,000, which was 200,000 nearly. It's now reached about 500,000. And the income, £2,000 million roughly, which is equal to 2,500 million as just the course fees. But currently, the whole of Sri Lanka's foreign reserve is $3,000 million. So you can see what we are missing, because we are not allowing our universities to take up university foreign students. More than that, the country with most doctoral graduates, that means after university, there has to be opportunities for further education. United States, here's the number. So you can see it goes down: United States, Germany, United Kingdom, India, Japan, France. So most of these countries give opportunities, and that's why they are developing. It reflects this, most doctoral graduates reflects the research and innovation that they are doing. So that's what that contributes to development. It is essential to become a developed nation. So we have to honor CWW Kannangara. There's no question about that, because I'll just make it. Kannangara was the chairman of the committee that submitted the free education bill for a vote in the state council. So he was the father of free education in Sri Lanka. He was the education minister from 1931 to 1947. It was a moral, very forward-thinking, patriotic project. And his objectives were these. I'll put it there. So, education should be free from kindergarten to the university. Now, this is where we have lacked to some extent. We're not producing education in the university for everyone. The mother tongue should be used as a medium of instruction in the primary school. Perfect, no problem. The English should be taught in all schools from standard 3. Now, that's most important because that's the way we can keep up with the rest of the world. Then there were 2 other proposals that he said is in proposal, which we have virtually forgotten. The curriculum for the child should develop its head, heart, and hands. That shows that you develop to live in a society, you respect each other, your manners, the way you behave, etc. So that has to come into the curriculum. But we don't even have it how to work on the roads at the moment. So the education of the emotions, education of the intellect, and practical ability for well-being has to be taught as well. Now, these 2, I don't know whether it exists in our current curriculum at all, or whether anybody assesses whether it serves these 2 objectives. Take, for example, since the 1970s, not much change in our education model. It's probably got worse. Say, you can see, for example, a tram car around that time in Colombo. If there was a course that was designed to teach people who were using or repairing tram cars, that's probably still there so many 70 years later, but there's no tram cars in the country. So this is the kind of mismatch that may have in our courses in the university. And the other thing, so in 1950s or before that, we produced government servants and not leaders in our curriculum. We didn't have curricula that's designed to produce leaders. So the colonial education paradigm was the one that we just followed and keep following as well. It's designed for this purpose. It's not designed to produce leaders. Take one problem in our country, road traffic accidents. It keeps going up and up and up and up. And there's a lot of infrastructure development. There's a lot of traffic police on the road, and you get fines everywhere, but we have not achieved anything. One death has 11 additional casualties. Estimated cost, 2 to 4% of the GDP. At the moment, we have 9 people dying on the road every day. In the peak of LTTO, we had only 7 people dying every day. But has anybody taken much notice of this? We really need thinkers and leaders, researchers to find solutions to this kind of problem. So the difference, now you can see the difference. Now, if people have talked or taught students in the UK or in a developed country, this is what happens. Everyone has a question if the teacher is, and the teacher will entertain those questions positively and say, yes, that's a good question. This is the answer. I mean, some of the students might even contradict what the teachers taught, and they will take it positively and then look at it and answer those students positively. Even the youngest ones who are traveling in the, say, bus, for example, they have hundreds of questions. They keep asking. Sometimes you might ask, oh, why are you wearing a tie? I mean, that's the kind of question sometimes you might face. So it promotes leaders. But imagine our classes, this is an adult class, very rarely anybody asks any question from the teacher. They just write down what was said and then go home. They don't even ask anything else. So the younger students are kind of suppressed from home and then primary school environment, not to ask questions, not that indirectly. What happens is that you ask a question and then you were told, oh, don't ask, it's a stupid question. So you look stupid, or you look like a problem if you're asking a question when you're at smaller classes. So basically, you get branded as a bad student, if you keep asking questions and disturbing the class. So that's the kind of environment we have here, which is not really productive for us. So there's something called a progressive paradigm of education. This came in 20th century with the focus stressing the development of individual intellectual potential, creative self-expression, analytical thought, which is essential, development of responsible citizens, and reflective and critical thinkers. Now, progressive paradigm, although we talk like this, is very difficult to implement because here the huge change is required in the way the teachers perceive it and the people perceive it as well. So, but it's something we can think about. So progressive learning is a movement that emphasizes teaching children how to think rather than rely on rote memorization. That means just memory recall. That is kind of thing that is being stressed at the moment. And it's not the thing what we need to develop Sri Lanka. So education, the nation supports the growth of civil society, supports democracy, supports political stability, and people learn about their rights and they acquire skills and knowledge to protect their rights as well. So this is why the education is such a key thing that we need change to and modify in Sri Lanka for us to develop. And free education alone cannot succeed. We can see that. And look at this, after 70 years of free education. Computer literacy rate in Sri Lanka by sector and survey area. Average in Sri Lanka, it has been going up slowly. Very good, from 2006 to 2017. Urban areas do better when compared to rural areas. But here is the estate population. They're not computer literate at all, only maximum 10%. So you can see, despite free education, but there's so much inequality at the moment as well. Computer literacy in general is, say, 1 in 4 people in Sri Lanka computer literate. 2 in 5 people in Sri Lanka have a digital literacy. They can use a phone, share and create using information, and see the technology, and etc. So that's our current status. That's despite free education. Another thing, say district literary rate. Now in Sri Lanka alone, we think, oh, they're all highly literate. We had free education for 70 years. Look at this, highest literacy is there in Gampaha, and then Jaffna, and then Colombo. See, look at this end. Say Vaunia, Kilinoch, Batticaloa are the lowest. Say, then you can say that that is Sri Lanka average is 93 here. And then you have Matale, Trincomalee, Matara, Ampara, Puttalam, they are all below Sri Lanka's average. So you can see, despite free education, which we think is working very well, still literacy is lower. This is a very interesting slide from a thesis of this author, Resha Cole, who's done it for a PhD. Now, it says predicted probability of passing milestone for different groups after controlling for all other variables. This is an interesting one, stratification by parents' education. So here we have parents' education, say who had gone through no school, year 1 to 5, year 6 to 8, and so on. And here's the classes. And when you see their children, how they're doing, say that's past A level, they're at the highest level. So if the parent has passed the A level, then their children do very well. So their predictability is high. But if the parents have gone to no school, their children also don't do that well. So stratification by sex. So you have Sinhala, Tamil, then upcountry Tamils and Muslims. In a way, it's a good thing because you can see the past A level, although it has reduced with the levels that people are dropping out for some reason, but it's at least equal, more or less equal, so that free education at least achieved something there. Stratification by urbanicity, passing A-level, urban, rural, and estate. There's a drop still between, say, urban children do better than the others. Stratification by sex, the boys don't do that well, and the girls do it well. And we know it not just in Sri Lanka, elsewhere as well. So you can see that free education is still not achieving this final target. Then talking about leadership, this is what is important. Now, leadership for the 21st century, the intersection of the traditional and the new. So question was asked, what do you believe are the unique requirements for 21st century leaders? Select all that apply. Now look at this, the answers that people think. Ability to lead through more complexity and ambiguity. This is a requirement, and you can see even today, there's so many people who will need to work as a team, and then there's be so many kind of ambiguous obstacles that you may have to overcome. So your leadership has to have that qualities. Ability to lead through influence. Now, these are mostly like political influences, etc., that you might get to support or to reduce it. So you have to have the ability to lead through influence. That's 65%. Then the ability to manage on remote basis, because you can't be in person be there, but still have the ability to remotely manage. That's 50% thought that's required. Ability to manage a workforce with a combination of human and machines. Now, most of the work, now how to combine humans and machines. So if the machine is breaking down every 5 minutes, the humans can't work. So you need to have the ability to make both work efficiently, and ability to lead more quickly. So the decisions have to make quicker, and then only you can have a successful leadership. Now that is something that is quite lacking in our university education system. So this is the statement for leadership for 21st century. Effective leadership in the 21st century means operating in a new context characterized by changing demographics and customer expectations, the influx of new technologies, and a rapid pace of change. So refreshing one's view of this context is essential to determine how leaders can combine traditional expectations with new leadership competencies to help their organization pursue success. This is why we need to have a feedback mechanism. So everything you do, and that data is current and it's now, and then leaders can make changes, and that opportunity has to be there. And we don't collect sufficient feedback from our students who are in our, at least in our university education. But this is something that's required all along where you provide a service. So there's a problem and we need to change. The education should bring equal right for education. And there has to be equal opportunity for education at any age, not defined by the type of funding. Say, you can't say, oh, it's private funding only, or it's state funding only, and so on. So that should not be a discriminating factor. Wider recognition for education and not political favoration. So if you have a degree, you should be able to compete for a job without any political favorations there. And there has to be healthy competition between institutions. And so that means we have to have autonomous power for universities, which we don't have in Sri Lanka. And there's quality assurance for education has to be independent, and that's most important. So if a state university is banned, then the quality assurance should be able to say, you have to improve. That's what is important. So attitude change is the key. And that is what we leads are trying to do, provide facts and evidence to convince as many. That's the ultimate aims to develop Sri Lanka. And the leads stand for four words. You learn from each other, like what I'm trying to do, and I'm asking people to talk. You educate people with whatever. I don't have all these facilities at the moment because we are completely working voluntarily. And assess, use the logic with good background. So you assess. So after you learn, you educate, then the logic gives good answers. If you have a lot of good background that you apply for your logic, then decide what is best. If Sri Lankan people do that, most of their work, we will definitely move upwards and have better living standards. You can talk in English, Sinhala or Tamil. There is no problem of the language. So the discussion is next. So you can please say your comments or what you think about this. I think the argument and constructive argument is the best, and that is what we would want. And if there's anything that you want to tell, you can say admin.srilanka.com. So the discussion, I hope, go this way rather than that way. So I'm open to discussion here. If you want to put your video on, you're welcome, or you want to keep it off, that's fine as well. So sorry.
Chula, can I go on?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Atul Sumatipala.
Yes,
I was a professor of psychiatry at Kiel. I was at King's as well, Chula, and I know very well.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations, Chula. It's excellent, thought-provoking. I agree with most of the things you said. Just for a few additions, I personally don't think there's free education in Sri Lanka because, as you very correctly said, somebody pays for others' education anyway. So people who drop out pay for the others. So it's not, and this whole sense of free is the issue because people don't value it, number one. Number two, the Green University of Sri Lanka, which is a government organization, is having some form of the model. You know, they have private foreign students coming up. It's something growing up, number two. Number three, we are actually, we have a group, professional group, including even Professor Disanayaka, trying to influence the curriculum changes. Their curriculum change is on the move within the Ministry of Education. And we have fortunately had the opportunity to have a collective influence, positive influence. And we are also very much thinking along what you are talking about, Chula. So I'll stop there because I have to leave in a few minutes, but it's a very, very good move. And we are just putting out our trilingual journal, Gaveshana, which is on education and education reforms, in which we have more or less brought up all the issues you have spoken right now. So let's work together. And I totally agree with you as a psychiatrist. Attitude is the most important thing that needs change. To change the attitudes, that's the way people think, determines how they feel and behave. And it's an upheaval task. I totally agree. You have been doing it for many, many years. And I have been doing it in separate ways. And there are a lot of like-minded people. But as you said, we know, as always Milgram showed, you know, conformity. The bad minority controls the good majority. So it's time to change. And we have no option other than working hard to swim against the tide. Thank you very much, Shula. Thank you so much.
No, I 100% agree with you. There's no question about that. What is required is that we need to tolerate different opinions. We need to teach the general public about these things. General public don't understand most of these things. And that's one of the problems. And that is why that people can overcome the correct decision by saying something. So I think you're absolutely right. We can take an effort, and we have to also maintain individual identities that, you know, you are a group and you are another group, and we come together in common path in different ways, but the objective could be the same, but we will be going in different paths. So excellent. Very good. Thank you so much, Atula.
Thank you, Chula. Could I make few comments? I also need to drive down to London in a few minutes.
Please.
Thank you very much. It's a lot of information there. And you mentioned that we have only 10% of the students, cream of the country, going to universities. But obviously, when they go to the university, ragging is a real nuisance in our universities. It is going from bad to worse. And that is not what we want. In UK universities, when the students come to universities, they appoint a sister and a brother from senior members to look after the students. And I don't know why. Sometimes some universities appoint a mother and a father, because when they come from home, they have a lot of problems, and some people, homesickness, financial difficulties, they need help rather than facing the ragging. So unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, it is still there. I don't know why we can't get rid of that.
Well, I
You
mean,
made,
it's a complex thing.
Yeah.
I'll just give the summary answer now. I've been in the university and gone into these circles. Say, for example, I had a student who came to AHS Allied Health once, and he came and told me that, well, I have no money and I'm working 4 days a week as a manual laborer to fund my education needs. I said, fantastic, very good. You keep doing that. That's excellent. That's what I also did. But I will give you money for 2 days and you still work 2 days, but at least it will cut down 2 days. So he collected my money, not directly. I left it in the office and he collected it. And then after about 4 months or 5 months, he was not going to collect money. And then to see that he had a motorbike, he had a mobile telephone suddenly. So this is what happens in Sri Lanka. There is exploitation by political parties. I don't say one, I think all of them do that and get their students or these vulnerable students to do what they want to do by this pathway. So what they do is they give money, they give a telephone, and they are supposed to do what the politicians ask them to do. So most of them have the attitude that creating trouble is what they can do. And ragging comes parts of it. Ragging comes differently. The first week when they come, all the students, they forcefully get the addresses of their parents, the jobs they do, and their telephone numbers. So basically, they collect all the addresses and everything about it. So they start then threatening the students in different ways, basically kind of trying to demolish their traditional pathways, like, caring for the parents, that kind of thing. They want to demolish that. And then they have to write various kind of filth so many times in their books, etc. I mean, I know all this. So basically, there is political influence behind it. And this is the whole problem. And
Right.
to get rid of that, you understand now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I need to make 2 more points. In your talk, you mentioned that no foreign students.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. I want to make sure that there is a new scholarship program. It's called Queen Elizabeth Commonwealth Scholarship, started 3 years ago. I'm in the selection panel. Last year, only 1 student came to Sri Jayawardhanapura.
Yeah.
These are very well organized, but we don't see many applications from Sri Lanka. Countries like Nigeria has hundreds of applications. And this year, I have circulated to many universities. I don't know how many applications because we are assessing now. These are the kind of things the universities it should promote among students and encourage them to apply for MSCs. These are for MSCs. My final point is about the patents and commercializations.
Yeah.
Patents can come from university research, but to get a product, commercialization is very important. It's a different game. So obviously, if we can't commercialize, patenting has no point because it is a negative document. So between university research and a product, there's a huge gap. We need to fill that gap. Without that, patenting is useless. What I want to say is your talk is a lot of information. My disappointment is why Sri Lankan people do not attend this kind of discussion sessions. It needs a attitude change. I don't know. People go thousands to demonstrations and rubbish meetings. Why? I mean, there are only few people here I personally know. Low attendance in important meetings.
That's quite true, but I'm not deferred by that. I continue to do this. The reason is I put it on the web, and then at least say within a week about 80 people look through it. So we just have to promote it and just keep it there, and it will get there, and we are slowly getting there. One reason is people are frightened to talk. That's one issue. So they don't want to be seen, be contributing to anything like this. And the second thing is they have so many obstructions. Like, for example, people don't have power these days, 7-hour power cut. They're so busy trying to bridge the gap between earning and what we need, their budgets, etc. So I sympathize. And also they from the junior school itself, people are not taught the importance of constructive discussions and debates and everything else. So it's a long process that we need to get people involved. But I know people look at these once you put it on the net. Yeah. So it's not wasted what we discuss.
Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much.
Chula, can I take 5 minutes?
Yes, please. Yeah.
I'm Lakshman Disanayaka from Sri Lanka.
Yeah, if you want to put the video, you're welcome to do that. I'll stop sharing.
So I will put it. I'll take only a few minutes.
Yeah.
I was professor of physics at Peradeniya until 2010. Then I retired. Now I'm working at the IFS, Montana. And Professor Sumutipala is our chairman of the board, and also an old friend of mine. So I agree almost 100% of your presentation, the points highlighted. There is a present scenario. So now we'll have to go deep in how to get out of these, most of these problems that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I will take very few points.
Yeah.
Now, South Korea, one of my favorite examples.
Yeah.
Whatever the political system, they don't have any natural resources. They are the #1 steel producer of the world. They say we don't have any natural resources, but we have only highly developed human resources. Okay, so that's a classic example for Sri Lankans to follow. But we are blessed with so many natural resources. For example, very high purity graphite. We have natural graphite, and which will be in very high demand because from graphite you can make graphene, the miracle material, which was discovered a few years back in UK. And also graphite will be in high demand for lithium-ion batteries for electrical vehicles. So high purity graphite, we have plenty in Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, we are selling them as a raw material at peanut prices because we are fighting for foreign currency. Then silica, another high purity silica, we have plenty, and we export them to Japan and Europe and other countries, and they make silicon chips, solar cells, computers, sell it back to us. We have the raw material, we don't have the technology. Similarly, we have spices, very high quality, cinnamon or pepper, whatever you name it. So we have everything. We might say we have rather developed human resources, but lacking technology. Also, we don't have a linkage between the graduates we produced and the private industry to take the knowledge into the industry and industrial outputs, because in Sri Lanka probably is the only country where we don't have a research and development phase. R&D and commercialization is virtually non-existent in Sri Lanka. We come up to research, publish papers, make good scholars, good graduate students. But beyond that, our research is limited to publications, largely. So we don't have a R&D and commercialization phase. Coupled with that, in Sri Lanka, you don't find postdocs. Strange enough, our university system or in our research institutes, no postdocs. That is another missing phase. And as a result, we don't have IPR, as Dharme mentioned, no patenting IPR facilities in the government sector to take these to the next stage. So these are the few points that, Chula, I would like if you can dig in deep at later discussions.
Yeah, I think you're highlighting a very important area. We actually have resources, but unfortunately, the support we have in education system to promote promote this kind of, strengthening our resources for our own benefit for national level is not happening for various reasons. And then, unfortunately, these resources get sold out by various, whatever, I don't want to talk, for very cheap rates. And then the commissions are unknown, where it comes from, to whom you take it.
Yeah.
But then that's an exploitation of natural resources. So if I put the exploitation in the middle of all the things you mentioned, that is one of the major problems. And then nobody knows about the degree of exploitation that is there. But that's one of the problems why we cannot bring resources up. Say, for example, if you have silica, if you have graphite, that is a valuable thing for lithium batteries, etc. So why can't we get someone to coordinate with us? But it doesn't happen because there are people who will be trying to stop this. Say, I will tell you one example. When there was tsunami, there was so much donation came along. And in the south, in Goa, the German chancellor was there. And then he offered money to develop a hospital. That's how the new Karapiti hospital came up. And then whoever, I wouldn't tell you who, he said, give us the money and we'll develop the hospital. He said, no. We will develop the hospital and give you the key. Yeah. So you can see the difference, yeah? So this exploitation, we just can't tolerate as a nation. And a lot of people don't understand even how it actually affects you or me, that, that why we can't survive in this environment. I mean, we worked 40 years. If you think you only work with your salary, you can't even buy your own home. That's the kind of situation that is there in Sri Lanka. So sadly, I think we should talk about the strengths of our resources in a more different way, so people think about it. I mean, if you will see, you want to export something like this, there'll be a lot of opposition. So because this kind of mafia at every level, and this has to be overcome only by getting people to understand the value of it. So this is why it's important to talk about these subjects. So I'm very welcome any subject area that you want to talk about, just one resource, and see how we can make it work by collaboration. I mean, everything is multinational these days. We can't do one thing alone. We have to collaborate with somebody else to come. So if you have the resource, if you ask a company who is purifying these to come to Sri Lanka, have a joint project, it will happen. Why it's not happening is there'll be people who wants to have their share in the middle. That's the problem. So we have to overcome that by educating the public. No other way to overcome this. And I've been educating the public for when you did AHS, for example, and that is how we won it. There was no other way. So we have to educate the public of our strengths and how to safeguard it nationally. So we have to be a bit more. I mean, a perfect example, for example, Ukrainians. It's something that somebody can talk about at some point, how patriotic they are. That's something that we have to develop.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Lakshmi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Since there's no more discussion, no more comments at the moment, I will stop here, and I thank all the contributors for sending their opinions to see how we can rescue Sri Lanka from our current situation. So we'll meet again next Sunday, and thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chula. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.